Hey everybody, my name is Andrew Davis and you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture, brought to you by my sponsor, Mixum Printing, the smarter way to print. I know printing your creative project can be confusing and stressful, but Mixum is here to make it easy. From their instant quote calculator that lets you get as many quotes as you want for free to their 24-hour customer service support, Mixum is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. And right now you can choose from a range of premium printing options and materials. And the company has also printed so many successful Kickstarter campaigns, and a bunch of them you have actually heard about on this very show. And they print other things such as books, posters, flyers, you name it, they can print it pretty much. And they currently offer services in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK. And Mixum can print and reach your audience anywhere in the world. So if you're ready to print smarter, not harder, head over to mixum.com, and right now they're running a really great promotion where listeners of my show can drop my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of a current order to get a 5% discount on their first order. And if you're running a Kickstarter, every percentage point off your printing that you can get, or printing anything for that matter, can be extremely helpful. So that is mixam.com. Again, type my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of your current order to get a 5% discount on that very order. And now I have with me actor, cosplayer, stuntman, and United States veteran Billy Dunstan. So welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Yeah, no, I am super, super excited, and thank you for your service. Obviously, you could probably kill 95% of my audience, so we're not going to try to get on your bad side per se. But I do want to talk a little bit about your background, because you served in the Army for 13 years, 5 deployments to Afghanistan, Iraq, Army Ranger, long-range surveillance team leader, and a lot of cool shit, and you're sort of a badass. So how'd you get into that? And I know you can't talk about certain things, but even seeing the world and everything that's going on, and how did all that happen? Because I'm super interested in that.
So in terms of like leaving and like what I wanted to do, being a ranger, nerdy, but Black Hawk Down. I watched Black Hawk Down. I was like, that's it. And there are a lot of dudes like from my generation that I served with were like, yeah, that's what got me into like that movie.
That's a great answer. That's a phenomenal answer. And obviously, you've done a bunch of stuff. And when you serve in the Army, and I used to work for Student Veterans of America, I interned at the Veterans of Foreign Wars down in D.C., the legislative branch. And so I'm very familiar with military issues and advocating for veterans and all sorts of stuff. I never served, so nobody asked me any of that, and I'm not going to misrepresent anything. But when you're in those positions, you tend to learn a lot of leadership and a lot of cool stuff. And obviously, that kind of leads into a bunch of other stuff outside of the military. But I definitely wanted to highlight that because in a lot of ways, you are very much a thought leader on Instagram,
Yeah.
and very inspirational every week.
Well, people really like it. And I had people message me in the DM, stuff like that, like, hey, what you said, really helped me today. And I mean, it's not all the time, but if I could, reach a couple of people, and the information is free. Like, I'm not, trying to nickel and dime people. I'm not trying to halo price people. Like, the information is there, and if you want it, you can use it. And because I can't tell you how many people ask me like, oh yeah, let's do something. I'm like, cool, show up to the gym. I'll help you out. And they never do. So
Yeah, you ever get the feeling? So my world is fascinating. I'm into comic book investing, and one of the things that people say, "Oh man, what do you think about this book?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it looks interesting." And then I ask them a bunch of questions. I say, "Hey, why don't you call me? And here's my number." And whenever I give out my number to somebody, nobody ever calls me. Whenever I don't give out my number, everybody's like, "Can I have your number? Why don't you answer my message on Facebook or Instagram?" And I'm like, "Here's my number. It's free to call me. Hit me up. If I'm in the middle of Target, I'll take a phone call if it's relating to comic book investing." It's the craziest thing that when people offer help, nobody takes it. It's so odd to me. And I mean, it's bewildering to me. But that's what it is, right? And obviously you're sort of more of an expert and you're jacked. So you're a good example of this, which leads us right into what I want to talk about. As much as I love talking military stuff and weapons and all sorts of stuff, and I know you're sort of the expert in that too with what you're doing right now, training people. I am curious though how you got into cosplay, because that's what I'm super interested in with you, because you're a little bit older than the average cosplayer in some degrees.
A little bit is being generous.
So how did you get involved? I mean, I'm 28. I don't know how old you are per se, but
4, so
yeah, we're not that far apart. It's really not that big of a deal. Once you hit your 30s, 30 to 40 isn't that big of a deal, or 30 to 44, or 30 to 50 is not that big of a deal anymore anyway either. But how'd you get into cosplay? Because it is fascinating. I was scrolling through Instagram, and obviously I found your Instagram. I'm like, oh, this guy's jacked.
Well, I mean, I've always been into comics and video games, all that stuff like that. Like a little bit of the comic stuff fell to wayside when I was in the Army, just because it's hard to keep comic books when you're moving from place to place. I mean, I used to collect Gundams too, and those, no idea, those have gone to the ether.
Something like this. That's my shirt for those who are interested. I built that, and
Nice.
there you go. But continue.
Yeah, so really, I'd always been interested into it, but I just never dedicated the time. And there was always something that I could, be doing, or I always had an excuse of why, someone else is doing it. But then I was like, no, especially when during the pandemic, I needed something to keep me in the house and keep me sane. So I was like, I'm gonna YouTube, the living crap out of this. And I was just like watching video after video, sitting there, rewinding tutorials, like, oh, I missed something, and going back, and then slowly getting better and slowly making mistakes. And like, I mean, craft foam is pretty cheap. So it's just like, I didn't really care if I messed up. And yeah, it just kind of took off from there.
So what was the first one you did? Because, and it's all right if you say Halloween, because Halloween counts to some degree. But really, what was like the first cosplay you did? Because everybody has a first one, and it's all right if it was bad. It's all right. Everybody starts out with having shit cosplays.
So again, that's another thing. Like, I really love Halloween. And like you said, if it counts, then I think it goes back in like 2013 or something. I did a Kratos, and like, I mean, I went the whole nine. Like, I shaved my head, didn't wear a ball cap, like full body paint, everything. So that was like really valid.
The reason why I say it counts is because it's not like you went to the store and bought it. You actually put in the effort with the Kratos from Gods of War. I think Kratos is from Gods of War, right?
Yeah.
I'm making sure. It's been a while. I haven't touched my Xbox in almost a year at this point. I've been that busy. But even painting your full body and shaving your head and having the weapons and having his armor and his shoes and the boots and everything, and having his proper attire and his war gear and his war, I guess, pellet, for lack of a better word. What was that like, even building that out and wearing it and going hard with that? Because that is what a cosplay is in a lot of ways, where that's the difference between a Halloween costume and a cosplay, is what you do with your Kratos.
So there's a line between obviously what the character, how they move around in the game and stuff like that, versus like what a real person can do. And then like, like tying like pockets, for example. Or then just like carrying my ID around. And then I actually I still don't know how to sew with the sewing machine. I just bought one, and still trying to figure it out. But back then, and still sometimes today, if I have projects that I need to sew, it takes forever, but I hand sew them.
You need Skillshare, and unfortunately, they're not a sponsor of this show, because if they were, this would be a perfect segue right into my second sponsor. That's what you need right there. But I digress. But even still, how was this received? Because obviously, I love seeing this thing on Instagram. I'm like, oh snap, that's dope! Like, it really is cool. but also even going even further, like even being safe with this stuff, because body paint, depending on what you use, you know, it can mess up your pores, it could close your pores. I mean, you do a lot of fitness stuff. I don't think I need to tell you, you know, eating your whey protein and even skincare is very essential right now in bodybuilding. And it's something that I think that people don't talk about because it has somewhat of a certain connotation, you know, with men. I think that's a fair assumption that when a guy is lotioning up, you know, it's perceived sort of weak to some degree, but it's very important. And even with body paint, being safe with that. So what was that like?
Um, I'm lucky. I kind of have pretty good skin all around. But just testing it, preferably not on your face first, uh, and just messing around. Like I'm still like okay with body paint. Like I'm getting better. Um, but that's something that I've been working on. Like, you know, I sit there in the bathroom and then like I paint myself, and it's a process. Anyone who can do it on themselves is like it's crazy how good they are. Like, and I'm right-handed, and when I have to go to like the left side of my face, it's oh my god, making things even is just this a nightmare.
I can imagine, and obviously this one is really something cool, and the fact that it's a Halloween, you know, cosplay versus, you know, cosplaying at a convention is even more interesting to me. But I want to back out of Kratos, and I actually want to talk a little bit of inside baseball because obviously, as I like to call it, sort of professional cosplay, and entering that stage where you're not doing cosplay as more of an art form and doing it more to, I guess, reach certain characters. And I'm not trying to make this like professional versus unprofessional, because I think all cosplay is cosplay, and I think the word professional cosplayer is a very toxic word, I think, and I think it does more damage than good. And I have a bunch of friends who are quote unquote professional cosplayers. It creates a division, not a unity.
Mm.
But I am curious about your entire process with Inside Baseball, talking Inside Baseball. So where do your ideas come from? Because you've done a bunch of other cosplays since then in a very short amount of time. And so where do your ideas come from? What does a creative process look like for you? And how do you come up with ideas? Because we're going to dive into a bunch of them in a second here.
Um, a lot of it's what I like at the particular time. Um, like for example, the new Halo Infinite is coming out, so I'm working on building the Spartan armor, a little bit more custom than what's out there, kind of doing pick and pull. But I mean, that's kind of what you can do in the game. Like you can see the helmet behind me, and then this is the uh, start of a chest piece. But yeah, it's things that I've always wanted to do, or things that I see that I think like, yeah, I could do that if I have enough time. Like, and that's the biggest thing with a lot of these projects is I myself sometimes too, I get caught in that trap of like, oh man, you know, it'd be really cool if I and just you just got to do it. You might be bad at it for, you know, the first 10, 20, 100 times, but eventually you will do it. You just have to do it.
Oh, I can attest to that. I mean, I started podcasting almost 10 years ago. My first 50 episodes were horrific. And I would like, I can't listen to them. They're cringy bad. It's not even that the research not isn't the research is there. It's just that I was stiff. And I was getting unstiff, and I was getting a little less unstiff, a little less unstiff. And it took like 50, 60, 70 episodes. And then fast forward to all of last year. I mean, my first like 20 episodes live are rough. And then now I'm doing a lot more content, and I'm getting looser and looser and better and better. And I think I'm good. I don't think I'm great. I don't think I'm above great. I think it's going to take like another 300 episodes minimum to even be considered great at this. But I know exactly what it's like. Just sometimes you just got to get in the game to do something. And you mentioned something very interesting about time. Obviously, I am curious because cosplay can be expensive. I think that's not a secret about cosplay. Materials can be difficult to find. Substituting materials can be a pain in the ass in a lot of ways. Also, knowing your measurements, and you're the type of guy who's probably fluctuating at any given point because you do have muscles and you're hiding it because, well, you don't want to get us demonetized. Because it'll happen. And then also, you know, managing your time, balancing costs. I'm busy, everybody's busy, you're really busy doing a bunch of stuff. And so how do you figure out and balance all of those things? Because it is complicated when you're doing this as a side and it's not your profession and it's not your job per se, or it's not fully monetized on Patreon, for instance. And so what is that like for you, figuring out how to balance all those different things? Because they do put pressure on. And then I know all about pressure because doing this show is a lot of balancing time and it's complicated. There's a million things that are going on with this show that nobody knows about. And it's so I'm curious how you balance all that stuff.
I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I've kind of made my life, everything has some kind of relevance or transference to another. So in terms of like the cosplaying, right? I make the costumes, but I can also make props. So that's something I can do for any of the, if I make an independent short film or someone needs something, that's something I can do, maybe a small commission, but it's something that keeps me creating. When I do the photo shoots or if I do videos to kind of promote whatever the cosplay is, I get in the character. You know, I really get in the headspace of being that character, and that's something that I can help use for my acting, which gets paid. I use jujitsu to help with the stuntman stuff that I do. I lift weights to help with the stuntman stuff that I do. So everything has a reason to happen, and it helps the next thing. So that way I don't feel like they're so disconnected that I just never have time for one.
I know the feeling in which that certain elements of what I do are connected. I'm a big comic book investor, and I definitely interview a lot of people in the comic world, and I gather data, and I catch on to trends before other people do, and then I spot things, and then I know what to sort of look out for or invest in or get an idea what's coming down the road. I also happen to have figured out that wrestling is about 3 steps ahead of comic books right now. AEW, WWE, independent wrestling as an entity, as a medium, is 3 steps ahead of comics. Netflix, and what Netflix is doing is a bunch of steps ahead of comics and the model that's coming down the road. And I sort of spotted that a while ago.
Nice.
And, I mean, anybody could have spotted it. It's obvious, but nobody thinks about it that way. But other aspects are not connected, which is fine. But it's very, very interesting because I would like my life to be completely connected together. But unfortunately, sometimes things aren't nicely connected. But even going into that, and I do want to talk about some of your cosplays, and I promise we're going to get into some of the acting and all that stuff. But one of the ones that stood out to me is your Aquaman. And you've done, I think, 2 or 3 versions. So you've done sort of more of a new 52 version with the yellow, scales on him, and it's more of a shirt, and it's sort of the golden trident. And then you've also done him shirtless, Jason Momoa style, from the movie. And you've done 4 or 5 versions of that one painted differently. I mean, it's the same version, just painted slightly differently. And so what was it really like doing both of those Aquamans and building those out and then painting the scales on? And obviously even, I guess, certain cons allow different things to be done at conventions that you wore them at.
Yeah.
Because some cons are very particular about how much skin you can show for both women and for men and a variety of other things. And also sometimes if it's the middle of winter, you may not want to be shirtless outside because it's cold. I mean, you're in Oregon, right? I mean, it can get cold up there. It can get cold up there. I'm just saying.
Rose City Comic Con's like the end of September usually, so like it's not very warm.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I originally started like painting, and I liked the design. I'm like, oh man, it doesn't look like too crazy, and I'm gonna hand paint it. And yeah, it took forever, and it didn't look good. But then the second year I did it, I made a stencil, and that was way better. I'm gonna have to close my doors. Benny. Sorry, dog's barking.
I have a King Charles Cavalier Spaniel, and she runs the house. She's a 19-pound cute little dog. Her parents are champions. She's sort of the reject, where she was bred, was undesired. But she's the sweetest little animal on the planet. and she's so cute. So she barks sometimes too. So it's all right.
All right. Benny, come here. Come here, buddy. Yeah, he's not gonna come. I'm gonna close the door real quick.
Anything could happen live, everybody. Anything could happen live.
Okay.
That's the beautiful thing about live, is that anything could happen.
Aquaman tattoos. There we go. But yeah, so I made a stencil, and then eventually I just started ordering them from Etsy. I can't think of the shop that I've been ordering them from off Etsy, but the tattoos. It's been pretty good, and it's really great for photo shoots where I need to, like, I don't want to spend hours meticulously drawing them on or having someone help me put them in place. Eventually I might move to airbrushing and try to do it myself, but I think that's a little bit further down the line.
And so to even talk about that, and even figuring out which one you want to use and use at a con and portray at a con, because different Aquamans have, and the two versions have different effects.
Yeah.
Obviously the Jason Momoa movie version has a certain effect versus the comic has a different effect. And obviously, it's interesting when you go down these effects and you look at them and you understand it. And so how do you figure out saying, hey, which one am I going to wear at a con? Which one I'm going to use in a photo shoot? What impact I want to create? Because that's something that, when you're creating things, and I guess certain photographers, if you're working with one, might have an idea of which one you want to use. And because obviously they have different, as I stated, effects and drives and, stances you can do with them. So what is that like for you, figuring out when to do which one at what point?
So going out to a con, it's like, for example, Rose City is an example. It's not super busy, so I'm not really worried about catching or snagging or losing any pieces while I'm on the con floor. And then it's a lot of the parking is pretty close too. So I haven't been ran into an issue where like carrying the trident or carrying anything in is an issue. And then for anything cosplay related, I mean, I can depend on the location. So for example, it was fine carrying it down there. The Aquaman, the gold, because I did both on the water, but it was like a 20-minute walk through just like nothing but sand, carrying all the pieces in the bag, and then getting dressed on the beach, and then changing on the beach, and then like half the stuff was wet. I mean, we went. I think it was like we got there at like 7 in the morning, so the water was freezing, but great pictures. So.
And so what is that even like, figuring out how to do that, and obviously collaborating with a photographer and their input and making it work together, because obviously everybody has a different way they do business. Some photographers are very commanding and others are more laid back. Some of them view it more as a collaborative work. Some of them take direction from how cosplayers want things done. And what is that like when you're working with a photographer to get certain pictures? Because, well, I don't know if you're a photographer per se. I don't tell somebody how to do their job, is what I'm asking.
I usually ask for a particular look or style beforehand, and then like I usually pick the photographer. So for example, I'll start back in the day. Whatever look I want first, I find a photographer that can do that. I know some photographers that are pretty flexible in what they want, and then I know some photographers like excel at a particular style. And if I want that style, then I'm not even gonna like really, give too much of my input. I'm like, hey, here's a character. Maybe here's a little bit about them, and then kind of let them do their thing.
And then to even go a little bit off, I guess, non politically correct. I had Cap Santiago, I had Eddie Newsom on, and I've had a few other male cosplayers. And Cap Santiago, who did a Marvel cover, he was Nova back in the Marvel cosplay covers. He has said that certain male photographers wouldn't work with him because all they want to do is shoot females. And so I'm super curious if you've run into anything similar to that, because when I heard that, I made the joke saying, wow, that's sexist. And he didn't get that I was making the joke where those photographers were being sexist towards him. He thought I was saying something else. And then he got it like 2 minutes later. But I found that to be very bizarre because I thought it was a very weird thing where there's not that many male cosplayers. He was doing a calendar, which is not something that many male cosplayers do. And this is an unbelievable press if it's spun the right way.
Yeah.
And I was saying, like, why wouldn't a male photographer want to do that? Like, you want to talk about sort of, I guess, breaking norm and also really good press and doing a cool project. So I don't know what your reaction, interaction with photographers has been, because I've heard other stories where a lot of male photographers won't do men and won't shoot males, which raises questions. It raises bigger questions in reality in the cosplay community. I think that I mean, it's sort of a red flag to me, but I'm curious what your interactions are with, male photographers, and even female photographers.
So I usually bounce back. I mean, I've had a couple where I've done one-offs, but I've done mostly between one guy so Lance is the one who did the Aquaman photo. Lance actually wants to get more, last I talked to him, wants to get more male cosplayers in because it's typically mostly female cosplayers, but so he doesn't really care. But he does horror themed stuff. He does just a wide variety. And I mean, he has his cosplay just like they take off. And then my buddy Isaiah, he is more flexible with what he wants, what I would say like a style, I guess. But I get to dictate it. But yeah, and he doesn't have any female, I think, in his portfolio, cosplayers in his portfolio yet. But it's kind of weird that to hear that like male photographers.
It's a very weird thing, and I was completely like shocked. And it's very rare that I am shocked on my own show, because I tend to do research, and I would have never even thought of it that there would be, because to me, I'm one of my biggest issues finding is I'm trying to find a lot more male cosplayers, and I have a really hard time finding male cosplayers, and it's a bizarre thing for me. And I'm like, if you're a photographer and there's 10% male cosplayers who are doing this at a more serious level and 90% females, and then a bunch of male cosplayers need photos, that to me seems like a gold mine to make money, to gain press, and and also have some really cool opportunities. And why would anybody want to turn down a competitive market? I mean, it just blows my mind. But I'm happy to hear that you haven't had any problems, and that there are people who are like, I'll shoot both. I don't really care. I'm happy to shoot whoever wants to be shot with my camera and wants edits and all that stuff. But I do want to back out of the ocean and talk about Adam Hunter, because that's old school stuff, and that's from Streets of Rage 4.
Yeah.
I don't even know what Street of Rage is. I'm 28. I had to actually look this up. So what prompted this cosplay? Because this is like going retro.
I'm guessing you didn't play. So Streets of Rage 4 actually came out last year. But it's like a long running series. Like I think
what I mean by retro is that it's got a retro feel. Yeah, I haven't played it. It's got a long history. Yeah. It's not a new game like Overwatch, where it's more of a legacy type thing. And it's got a lot of stuff going on. And obviously I did my homework on it, but this game does not look like Overwatch. I mean, it's and even the cosplay doesn't look like Overwatch. It looks more like a shonen anime style.
Yeah, like I actually wish like beat 'em ups would come back in terms of like a gameplay style. Like the last one that I can remember was the Bouncer, I think on PlayStation 2. But like the way first person shooters dominate the market now, that's how like 2D side scrolling beat 'em ups, or like just even beat 'em ups used to be.
Or like Def Jam, right?
Yes, Def Jam, Double Dragon,
with all the rappers,
like all that stuff, man. Like they need to bring that stuff back. Like there is a market for people who want that stuff, for older gamers like us, but then like younger gamers would completely love that stuff too, because it's just fun.
I am really bad at those types of games, and and I am like horrific, and I try, and I am just bad at it, and I quit while I'm ahead. But this is a really cool cosplay in a lot of ways because it's definitely something that is sort of outside, I think, what is traditionally done. And I looked on Instagram, and I haven't seen many of these either out there. And that's the other thing that's kind of cool too, is when you're doing cosplays that other people aren't doing. Because as a fan of cosplay, and I used to cosplay a little bit, but it's really not for me. It's nice to see non-saturated characters getting their spotlight. I appreciate when things get highlighted that don't normally get highlighted. And so what is that like for you, knowing that you're bringing this character to life in a lot of ways and representing, Adam Hunter and representing this game? And, very few people are doing that. And it's kind of cool because there's somebody at a con says, "Oh, I love this game," type moments.
It's really cool to hear someone say, "Oh, I love this game," because it is a smaller game. It didn't get a big release. I think it's only like so it's free on Xbox, and I think it's like $20 on PlayStation, something like that. It's not much. But it's really cool to see that, and then like being able to like embody that character. And like I've always been jealous of people who kind of already look like a character, and they can just throw one a little bit. And like this is one of the few characters where I'm like, I look like Adam Hunter, like when I put everything on.
So let's talk about this, and we're gonna get politically incorrect here, which is my favorite topic to go into. I'm not politically correct.
Right.
I hate everybody too, so we're getting that out of the way. Which means I love everybody just the same. Anyway, I'm an equal offender. But having said all that, you are extremely fit. You work out. You're jacked. Obviously, you have a background in this stuff from a college degree level in science. Obviously, you do a lot of stuff that way. You do modeling. And so what is that like for you? Because a bunch of the characters you play and represent in cosplay are more fit. And it's a real advantage to be that. I am not physically fit. I am about 25 pounds overweight. And so it doesn't work the same way for me unless I cosplay a fat character. And then I don't have to do anything. This is why I'm a podcaster and not a cosplayer. I can talk. I really don't look the part. But what is that like? Because it is nice when you don't have to wear a muscle suit, and that your muscles are out there already, and that it shows, and that it's building what these characters are supposed to look like in comics. And it's a nice touch because it adds a different layer. And I'm not saying that somebody who isn't jacked can't be Superman or Aquaman or Adam Hunter, but when it's all natural muscle, it's a little bit different when you see it at a con.
It's so going back to like the comic book stuff, like too, in the military and everything like that. Like I read comics, play video games, and like that's how the characters are. And I figured like if you want to be like those characters, it's not enough to just study them or be just cool. Like I can actually go do the things that they do, not to the superhero effect, but like I can be strong, I can be fast, I can do more.
Fly. You can fly.
Yeah, like I mean, like going back, right? Do you watch old school Jackie Chan movies?
Oh yeah, they're great.
Jackie Chan was a superhero. You see him take like a 50-foot fall and then get up, and he's just like, "Oh, let's go again." Like as a kid, he was a superhero.
It's like the Bruce Lee stuff. It's great.
Yeah. Bruce Lee walks into a room and beats up 20 dudes. He was doing that way before MCU and all the stuff like that. So like there was ways to like be, at least a low-level superhero. Because I mean, Bruce Lee isn't doing anything different than Daredevil's doing, beating up dudes, like.
So I used to do martial arts, and I used to be trained by Jim Smith. And Jim Smith's son at one point was one of the faster kickers in sparring in the entire United States, James Smith. And his hands were unbelievable fast, and he was a beast. Now, you know, if you were sparring with James, James wasn't going to kill you because there's a difference between when you're sparring at 10% versus sparring at 100%. But it's the idea that when you see people who blitz off lines, unbelievable, and move that quick, and you see it firsthand, you're like, holy shit, that's scary. And it is scary. And that guy is a monster. And even Jim Smith in his prime was a monster before he passed. And when you see people who are that good blitzing off lines that fast, I mean, it's scary. No question about it. And then even going further into this, and again, we're getting politically incorrect. My career and your career in cosplay are over after this interview. I promise. But this idea is that one of the things that I appreciate women being in skimpy outfits at cons. I appreciate women looking like pinup girls, doing cosplays, sexy and all that stuff. And obviously I'm single. I don't know if you are single per se. You might not be, so you might have to take the fifth on this one. But at a certain point, I also want characters to look realistic. And I think there is merit to when a character looks realistic, where it's cool to see, you know, a female Superman and a gender bend on Superman and a female super with, you know, her boobs hanging out. It's great at a con. You know, that's cool. But I also want to see legitimacy with cosplays. And I like both of those things and I like mashups. But what you do, I feel, is adding a lot of legitimacy to certain cosplays. And obviously Adam Hunter and even the Aquaman and, you know, your Judge Dredd is another good one. You know, there's a lot of legitimacy to it and also natural muscle and all that stuff. And I think that there's a really cool thing when that's thrown in there because it's like, okay, this is now becoming real versus being fictional and it's coming out of the comic book page, if that makes any sense.
And that's really my goal, is to try to make the character come off the page as much as possible. With me, my work also helps me, you know, stay in shape. My activities help me stay in shape, and then I can also bring that physicality to the character. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with wearing, you know, a muscle suit or anything like that. But if I have that, you know, I guess like attribute already there, why not use it?
It's kind of like I know how to public speak in front of a lot of people, and a lot of people are terrified to. And so if you put me into a room and I don't have a panel prepared, I legitimately can shoot off for 50 minutes and be entertaining. Not everybody can do that at a con. And I've seen a lot of people fail and they don't have that gift. And it's a gift, it's an attribute, it's a real skill. And so I am completely understanding where my body makeup is not to be jacked. No matter which way I look at it, I don't have that genetic makeup in my body. I could be in better shape. I don't think I can add another 80 pounds of muscle onto me. I just don't think it's possible. But I digress on that. And then the other cosplay that I thoroughly enjoy is you did some Cyberpunk cosplay stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
And that stuff is wicked. Now, Cyberpunk 2077, love the soundtrack of both of those games. I play it like Grand Theft Auto. I didn't get past the second mission, and instead, my handgun skills are savage in that game.
Yeah.
I need to play the third mission. I don't want Jackie to die yet, and I don't know if I'm ever going to beat the game, but I am fucking around in the side missions, going to places that technically I should not be going to, and home run derby, here we come. Wait till I get the golden baseball bat in that game. Oh, I know exactly where it is, too. It's in the concrete after you pretty much play the first stage in the second, or it's right before the first stage or second stage in the second part of the game. It's great. I'm going to be home run derby all day. I'm going to kill everybody in that game with a baseball bat at one point. It's a skill.
And I love, first of all, I don't care what anyone says about it. I enjoyed my time in Cyberpunk. I played on a day one Xbox One. So like in terms of like, oh man, it was buggy. Yeah, it was buggy, but the music was great. And then when the game slowed down for very emotionally driven scenes, the characters are all amazingly written.
It's also the voice acting is phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
They,
Or sorry,
they,
I just got an Xbox Series S, so I will be replaying it. And yeah, like there's like being able to flip around and slow down time and shoot people with the revolver. And then so now I'm gonna play through. I'm playing through as a chick. I started playing through, and I'm using
so, so, so,
hacking
so,
and swords.
so, I don't know how to hack in that game. I'm really bad. I just like shooting people, and I'm
Yeah,
having a great time. I'm
no,
having
and it's fun.
It's a great game. The crazy thing about that, the chick's voice is a very prominent voice actress, like real
Mm-hmm.
money voice actress, and I think she plays Lucy in Fairy Tale.
Okay, okay,
I think that's who it is. And so you have V, the chick as V is great. I love that you could run around naked. It's fantastic. It's an amazing game. Everything can be out, and then your eyes. I love customizing your eyes. It's great. It's sick. Oh, I don't like wearing eyewear in the game because my eyes are like checkered with like red in the middle. I look like the devil playing chess. It's amazing. But I digress. I love Cyberpunk. I think Cyberpunk is great. And then speaking about Cyberpunk, you've done Daft Punk too, and that's like a
yeah.
step right into the Cyberpunk element. And they were the first Cyberpunk people, and I appreciate Daft Punk because I'm a big Leiji Matsumoto fan in the anime world, and I'm old school anime. I'm legitly old school anime. I go back to the '50s, and then
Oh,
I'm a big Tezuka fan, and like I have to interview the Tezuka expert. I need to interview her, and I need to reach out to her. But I read her entire book that she wrote. Phenomenal book, and I'm a huge Tezuka nerd. I got a bunch of his books. It's great. And I go old school, like black and white Astro Boy, where Astro Boy's fighting the
oh
KKK.
man.
Good stuff, like the good stuff. And yes, Astro Boy in prison's the KKK. I want to make that crystal clear. It's awesome if you think about it. Like talking about a 1940s and 1950s anime doing that in Japan, brilliant. Just Tezuka's a brilliant individual, and I think Astro Boy is also imprisoning communists as well.
Okay, I have to check that out. Like, I don't go back that far. I mean, I think in terms of like going back to the culture would be like that culture would be like Guyver, like the live action Guyver. I don't know if you remember those. And then which maybe one day I'll do that because God, those were so awesome. But then
I gone back to the 30s with,
holy
with
shit.
with like the smut and like 1930s manga. Like I've gone deep down into stuff. Like I go deep down into things. And I mean it's like it's a lifestyle for me. I'm a big anime. My company that is going to become a holding company name is Pop Anime Comics. It's not the anime is not just a word there. It means something. It's great. My logo is an elf. It's an elf that looks like Zelda and Leafa from SAO combined, wearing a green tunic with a pouch and a little cleavage. But that's not the point. because the whole thing is that if I'm gonna have a company that I want to make into a badass company, I want like a fluffy logo, just to be a troll.
No, it was. I mean, I like it, and it pops. You know what I mean?
I mean, my company's huge. It's like there's so much stuff going on. It's great, and I'm launching a Kickstarter in 2 weeks from now to fund my season 3 of the podcast. Is gonna be great. And then the last cosplay I want to touch upon is King Tekken, and obviously it's sort of a masked wrestler entity that may or may not look like the character in Demon Slayer. I'm just saying.
um, so going that not before we get to Tekken, Demon Slayer is between Demon Slayer and One Punch Man. Those were the things that got me back into anime. I had been off anime for a very long time, and then my buddy was like, "Dude, you gotta watch one."
I can't get into Demon Slayer. I liked One Punch Man.
Yeah.
I can't get into Demon Slayer. I saw the movie with my friends, and I thought the movie was phenomenal. But I understood what was going on because I read a summary.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Demon Slayer is bad. I just can't get into it. It doesn't do it for me. Like,
Okay.
One Punch Man was enjoyable, but I just saw Odd Taxi.
Hmm.
Brilliant. One of the most brilliant animes. That like anime got me. I left anime. I didn't touch anime for about 5 months. That
Yeah.
anime brought me back into anime.
So what is it called again?
Odd Taxi.
Odd Taxi. Okay, I have to check that out.
I can't tell you anything about it without ruining it. It's one of the most brilliant shows I've ever watched. And at the end of episode 12, you're going to say, "What show did I just watch?" That is the question. And no. Before you it's not crazy. It's just that episode 12, the other 11 episodes, it explains it because you follow what's going on. But then when you hit episode 12, it changed the entire shift, and you're like, "Oh, now I understand."
Okay.
It adds a whole different layer that you then reflect back on the other 11 episodes.
Okay.
But continue talking about Tekken because I got distracted.
No, it's all good. Yeah. So Tekken. I mean, I feel like that was a really good way to combine. I mean, I love Tekken. It's a great game. I played it all the time. Like when I was a kid. So we would go. Me and my dad would go to one of the local barbershops, and like the local barbershop near me was kind of like just like the guy hangout, and we would run Tekken tournaments. And King was one of my favorite, even though like so King and then Hwang, which is like the Taekwondo guy. But the King one was a really easy one to do, and I thought it'd be really cool to combine. Like I already do a lot of grappling sports. I do judo, jujitsu, so combining that with King, and then I really want to get like a promo video for it, so actually show me like throwing people and like doing wrestling takedowns. But holy crap, that mask is so hot and it does not breathe. Like I would have to like put the mask on, take a couple of pictures, and then like take it off. Like it doesn't breathe at all. And then there's some with like the cape, and the cape is essentially like a plastic poncho. So I'm just like cooking in the poncho, and then with the King mask on. Yeah, and it was like 10-15 seconds. It was like the most. I'm like, hurry up, taking pictures. I'm just like dying, just drenched in sweat. I had to like pat my face off and like cool down before I put it back on before it like messed up the rest of the pictures.
That's crazy, and I've actually never played Tekken, and I know I'm like the worst video game player ever. In which like I'm a really bad video game player, and like I'll play like 2 games a year, and that's it. And I'm the worst at video game playing, and I admit it. I got no problem because I'm not. I play video games more for leisure.
Okay.
Than competitive, and they're just a distraction. And this year I've been so swamped that I haven't touched my Xbox in over a year because I'm that busy. And it's one of those things where I'm just like, yeah, when you're doing 4 or 5 interviews a week, I have no time for video games. If I have time to watch 2 episodes of anime, that's what I'm doing right before I go to bed. And so, but I really do want a Tekken cabinet from Japan. That's something that I would love to have in because I'm planning to build out a studio at some point for this. And having a Tekken cabinet, like an original Tekken cabinet imported from Japan, would be dope. It would be dope, or having a Japanese Street Fighter cabinet would be cool too. Or Street Fighter 2 or Turbo would be great. One of those 3 from Japan would be phenomenal because that's cool to me. Or NBA Jam would be cool too. But that's an American game, so those things aren't expensive. And Donkey Kong is cheap too. Donkey Kong is like a $400 game cabinet.
Really?
It's dirt cheap. A Donkey Kong game cabinet is so easy to find.
Okay.
They're dirt cheap and they're easy to find. So I digress right there. But what was even the response on the King? Because obviously, I don't know if you wore it at a convention, if it is too hot to wear, or is it more just photo cosplay? And
photos.
But what? So I actually have a question because there's a bunch of different types of cosplays. Obviously, a lot of females do what are known as Patreon cosplays, and they're selling sets, they're selling lewds, they're selling skimpy stuff, and that's one type of thing. and it obviously has a corporate sort of use type thing. And then, you know, if you have enough people wanting to look at you and sleep with you, which is sort of where it goes and change guys' dopamine levels, and then after a while they ghost them. I could go on for hours on that topic. I fell into like a 12-hour reading trap once on that topic. So interesting about what OnlyFans does to men and what happens and how they create a virtual girlfriend persona in their brain. Fucking crazy. It's quite disturbing actually. Super fascinating from a psychological standpoint. Oh my god, one of the most interesting things you can read.
Yeah.
But even going further, what is it like to have a photo only cosplay and then throw it up on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and then see the response? Because it is a really interesting way to get feedback and figure out what's working, what people are receptive to. And, you know, the internet could be both positive and actual true feedback and also false feedback. But I think if you're getting a bunch of likes on Instagram and a bunch of comments, it kind of tells you that you're going in the right direction to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be people who, like, you know, they just don't like anything. But with the King cosplay, I got a really good feedback from it, and with it being only like only photography, so it's only photography right now. That's not to say I might not go out to a con or go out to Halloween on it. It's just right now I've only got a chance to do it for photography, and it is hot, but I mean I'd be fine to take pictures in it. And then I kind of want to modify it, and that's another thing too with a lot of the costumes is, and it's cosplay as a whole, and you feel the same way with the podcast, is that like you do one, and now you're like hooked. You're like I can do it better, and you start to see like little areas where you can tweak this or tweak that, and you're just like, oh my god! And then you go down a rabbit hole of just like
There's a whole thing coming, even with my old content, that I just don't have the manpower to do. And there's a whole bunch of recyclable content and tweaking and editing and a variety of other stuff that once I get manpower and I get some help and I get a little bit more time and I get a little bit more infrastructure, I mean, by the end of this year, I'm going to have 270 interviews that I'm going to have a big project to do with. Like best of stuff and editing. Oh my God, I have legitimately a 10-year editing project ahead of me, and it's going to be a blast. And it's talking about modification. Oh my God, the mods that I could do on my podcast are insane of the old content just by itself.
Yeah.
But continue. Sorry for interrupting.
Oh no, that's good. Like for example, the Judge Dredd back there. So one thing that I took for granted when I made the helmet is that like I kind of just want the base template, which it fits, but it would have only fit for photos. Like if I would keep my head straight, right? And there was no cutout in the back of the neck where like, you know, you cut down so you actually can look up or like turn your head to the side. So again, like I was talking earlier, like you need to be able to develop the costume to have some type of like real world practicality.
I like the term and something going on in cosplay, I'm sure you've seen it, where wearability is a really good term, meaning you need to build cosplays that are wearable. I've seen at cons where people can't sit down in their cosplays. I've also seen now there's been a shift where people have gone saying, look, I don't need to be 100% in this armor, but I would like to sit down while I'm eating lunch. You know, I've seen that. And it's a very cool thing that's going on where people are saying, hey, I'm willing to give up a little bit of accuracy so I could sit the fuck down and have my overpriced lunch at a con.
Yeah.
Especially the key word there is overpriced lunch. I want that to be clear. It's not them sitting down, it's the overpriced lunch. Because them sitting down is a privilege. The overpriced lunch is a right that you have that should be granted to you at a con. If you pay a fair price or underprice for your lunch at a con, I'm sorry, but you're not a true con goer.
It's so one of the good things about Rose City Comic Con though is that they usually get like the food vendors that have like food trucks that come. So there's actually really good food there too. It's not just like whatever the convention hall is.
I'm not happy with who runs them right now. So because they do awesome con, and they don't
Yeah.
treat their panelists as well.
Yep.
And I'm not thrilled. I'm not thrilled with them. And I like awesome con, and I just think that I should have been paid a bunch of times at that con when I was presenting. But that's neither here nor there. I have a vendetta against cons right now, and I would like to be paid because it's expensive and it's pricey to go to this stuff, and I like money, and that's my only problem. And so, yeah, but neither here nor there. As I stated, you and me both are not going to ever have a career in this segment after this interview. I built my own. That's all I'm going to say, is that I'm building my own company, and I'll just go buy the competition. It's much easier. Instead of competing, you just buy the competition. It's so much easier. But I digress. I'm missing a bunch of your cosplays, but I do want to mention quickly, you've done a bunch of acting, you do a bunch of stunt work, you obviously do commercials, you do, short films, you do independent films, you've done some other short things. And so what is that like for you? Because that's a whole different ballgame than doing just regular cosplay stuff and even being in that segment. And then also you do some martial arts stuff, and all that stuff, as you stated, sort of goes together because everything sort of bleeds into each other to some degree in your world. And what is that like? I know it's a bit of a hard shift, but I want to get it in.
I like acting because it's always something different, and then you're not playing a character, you are that character. Which, I mean, if anyone who really gets into cosplay, who really loves a character, they are that character for the con. I mean, I've seen some amazing characters where like what's the guy who always does like the Peter Griffin? Like he's like super famous, like kind of looks like him a little bit, but like he does the voice, knows a lot of the stuff, kind of has the mannerisms. I mean, for like when he's at the con, he is Peter Griffin. He's acting. He's fully committed to that character, and that's a cool thing with being able to do it with acting. And it's really cool to be able to do that, and then have people like I said, walk off the comic book page or walk out of the Xbox.
And then also it's the idea that even with acting for you, you're trying to get SAG, eligibility, and you're trying to, I guess, the way I view it, and it might come off offensive, is tier up into better roles and tier up into more paid roles and tier up into eligibility so that you then get called in and then you're in the guild, and then all of a sudden you're now getting certain economics and getting certain, privileges in that entire thing. I'm not a member of SAG or anything like that. I don't know exactly how it works, but it's very important, I think, that when you're trying to go down that path with it too, is that also becomes a paid gig as well. And it's nice to be paid for things. I mean, I could tell you for a fact that I have a sponsor. They're paying for my StreamYard and other things that I need to keep this thing working. So I'm not getting paid. I'm not making any money, but I'm not losing money anymore. And it's a nice feeling when somebody's granting you money or they're paying you for a live read or something like that, where you're now saying, okay, I'm getting a money equivalent to some degree, or that I'm, maybe I'm making $300 for the day. And it's nice that somebody's recognizing that my work is worth some monetary value.
Yeah, and I mean that it all takes, a little bit of getting lucky, but just studying a bunch too. I mean, whenever I'm not in, like if I'm having breaks in work, I'm reading, I'm watching YouTube videos, I'm watching documentaries, I'm reading reading different books, audiobooks, and it's just trying to always improve a little bit, or at least be in the culture.
That's something that I think people don't understand about what I do also, is that I don't just do interviews. I mean, I listen to other interviews. I'm listening to my competition. I know who's my competition. I know who's at my level. I know who's beneath my level. I know who's above my level. I listen to Rogan. I listen to Howard Stern. I listen to a bunch of different styles, and then I also listen to myself. And I'm well aware of what's out there and what styles out there. And then I also listen to people with curation. I also listen, not to, go too deep into politics, but I listen to people on the right and on the left, not necessarily for what they're saying, but for how they're presenting. I mean, my live read skills, and I might offend people, but if the way Ben Shapiro and the people at the Daily Wire do live reads, I think is some of the best in the business. The way they do that, every podcaster can learn from the way Ben Shapiro does a live read on his show for, you know, an Express VPN. And because the way they do it is legitimately perfect. I try to mimic that because it works and it's effective and it's just straight up and it's effective and it's great. And so I completely understand when you're pushing hard and you're studying, and that it's not because the acting is what, like 20 to 30% of what you do when you're trying to act, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other 70% is getting a gig, learning the gig, rehearsing for the gig, auditioning for the gig, studying to get into that character, or studying to up your skill set, or, you know, staying afresh of what's going on, or if there's a new character you never played before, understanding what a bodyguard does, understanding what, you know, a stoner does, understanding what a beach bum does, you know, and even just a new technique or getting into character or even finding something. It's complicated. The acting, I think, is the least amount as far as percentage, because it's everything leading up to it.
Yeah.
Unless you disagree, feel free to
No,
disagree. Yeah.
no, and you're right. And like the thing is with a lot of those things too is like my things kind of the things I'm interested in or like what occupy my time, they kind of flow backwards and forwards. So with the cosplay, if there's something that, you know, let's say even if it's makeup wise, or even if it's something that, let's say I want to make a promo video or I want to film something. I have buddies, like we just filmed a fight video earlier this last weekend. Those are things that I combine with, you know, prop making, with makeup, and then like I could also use that as promotion for other things. So like they all tie together, and one thing's always trying to make the next thing better. I'm being able to, you know, see yourself improve in the craft is nice. And it's also nice where other people get to, you know, they notice that you're improving as well.
And it's also nice when something green is in your wallet telling you have improved
Yes.
as well. I know for a fact that when my sponsor paid me, I was happy because I realized very quickly that $240 for the next 12 months is not coming out of my wallet. I was ecstatic. They paid me more than that. Okay, I'm going to let everybody know they paid me more. For those who are watching and are about to try to lowball me on a sponsorship deal, they paid me more than that, but it helped tremendously. And I'm not going to tell everybody what my sponsor paid me because I don't want to be lowballed. I would prefer to be highballed, but that's a different discussion. Everybody can take that how they would like to. And obviously, though, and I am curious, I know you got to get out of here in a few minutes, but I do want to switch back even to cosplay because I just want to get that acting stuff in there because I think it's super cool. And I'm going to give you a chance to promote yourself in 1 second here. But I am curious because obviously the last 22 months, I think, have been very much a hell and have been very confusing in cosplay. And the way I view the last 22 months is that it's been a great equalizer where a lot of the top cosplayers sort of went into a cave, were not producing content for a while. I came out of the cave and started interviewing a lot of smaller cosplayers, giving people opportunity. In 2020, I did 90 interviews. A bunch of them were cosplayers, indie wrestlers, indie comic con creators. And now I'm actually doing a lot of male cosplayers and trying to find them. And I'm actually gearing up to do a lot of disabled cosplayers, people who are underrepresented, I feel. And I feel male cosplayers and disability cosplayers are extremely underrepresented. And it's more of a focus also. You need to have about 15,000 or less Instagram followers to be on my show because those people need the most help. Despite me wanting to make money and a lot of money, I want to also be very much helpful versus I don't want to have somebody who has 5 million, you know, Instagram followers. And there's a particular cosplayer, and she didn't produce content for the entire year of 2020 when COVID hit. And she's a thought leader. She is one of the top cosplayers. I mean, I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to start a war, but everybody knows who I'm talking about. And an asset of hers floats in water. We'll leave it at that. It's like my credit card. They're both full of money and they both float. No, they both sink in a pool. It doesn't float. It doesn't float in water. They both sink in a pool. The idea though is that where do you think cosplay is going? Because clearly something has changed. Hot Topic is now changing who they want to do business with and who they want to sponsor in the cosplay world, where they're sponsoring a lot of people who have less than 10,000 people on Instagram because they have high engagement. And there's been a big shift. And I'm curious how you view it, because it is not the same as it was before COVID. And
No.
it's definitely, I think it's safe to say there's been a great equalization that has occurred, and it's definitely swung the other way, the pendulum from
Yeah,
the top 100 cosplayers more, I feel, towards the center.
definitely. And I mean, I think one of the things with this is that with COVID and people, it's like, if you have bigger people who don't produce, that gives time for the little guy to produce. This is the time. This is the time to study your craft. I mean, I went to classes, I read books, I made sure that I did everything that I could so that when, restrictions, lifted a little bit, a little bit last year, and then, when they do like release completely, I'll be ready. So this is the time to do that. Um, and then,
A wrestler, O'Shea Edwards, said to me at the start, I think either in April or the first week of May of 2020, he said, with wrestlers, this is the time to do all the work, because when this
yeah,
thing is over, all the people who didn't do the work, it's going to be like we're all at the starting line. There's a reason
exactly.
why I did 90 interviews, in 2020. I'm doing 180, and, I'm going to be going right into this, because when things get normal again, I have a feeling with interviewing that, a lot of people are trying to copy, but a lot of people don't have their craft down yet. And now I, as an interviewer, have been doing it so long that I'm just waiting for us to all open up the gates and let us all fight, because
Yeah,
I'm planning it's going to be a brand new world.
yeah.
And I don't think having 4.1 million Instagram followers matters anymore. I
No,
don't.
and here's the thing too with that. It's when you take someone who maybe has that far, who's gone that far into it, I think there might be a little bit of like complacency versus someone who has, under 15,000, like you said. There's more love put into their project because they know that this has to work. Someone who's got that far, they're just like, man, I got a fan base, you know.
It's also like I'm starving for
Yes,
for, for, for
exactly.
money. I'm
Make
starving for
people work
money,
harder.
and I am willing to outperform people. And I'm also working smarter, figuring out who should be on my show. And I am hungry for content, and I am hungry to outperform and outsmurf people, as I like to say it. And so I'm at that stage where, and even though I've been doing this for almost 10 years now, and I'm going to be hitting about 410 interviews in my career by the end of this year, I'm still starving to get to that next level. And I think so many people who've been doing this are getting soft. And I know for a fact that, it's just, I'm just getting started is where I'm at. And I
Yeah,
have feeling it's the same with you.
definitely.
Um, and so obviously, having said all that, and I do want to get you out of here because I know we're slightly over. I'm making you
Yeah.
late to a meeting, but I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself. So where can people find you? Where can they find you on Instagram? Obviously, I don't know if you have a Facebook page, Twitter pages. Obviously, where can people find your website? I think I put that up in the description, but you could tell people where that's at, as well as where are you on social media and what projects you got coming up, because you got a bunch of stuff happening.
Yeah. So BillyDunstan.com is my website. That's where I funnel most of everything that through. Also, my Instagram is BillyD275. And then as far as so those are what's updated the most. And then projects I got coming up, I have a short film that I helped direct and did the choreography for that. I'll be linking that and posting that on my website as well. Then look out for me for a Goodyear commercial and a Mineragua commercial as well. Oh, actually, sorry, and Labatt Beer. Don't forget that. That's an amazing commercial. It comes out in January, and it was a lot of fun.
What is that commercial?
Labatt Beer.
Oh, so is it like a beer, like a legitimate beer?
Yeah, Canadian beer. So like I guess their version of like Bud Light, but it's actually good, I guess. I
No,
don't
no,
know.
no, no. I asked the question because root beer is not alcoholic. Like
Okay,
I
good.
had to legitimately ask the question because I like drinking beer. What can I say? Do you like
Yes,
beer? I like beer.
try Labatt. It's really good.
So, having said that, and obviously I like beer, and what I've been saying, and I'm going to keep saying it, is that you have to support indie content creators, and you have to support cosplayers, and you should support cosplayers. And one of the ways to support cosplayers, and obviously actors and other people in this segment, and models and all that stuff, is that one of the things that you should do is follow them on social media, follow their Instagram, check out their website, follow them on Twitter, Facebook, whatever they got, you should follow them. If they run a Patreon, you should support that. And even going further, tweet at them, share what they're doing, share their cosplays, just like somebody's photo on Instagram. It means a lot. Leave a comment as well, preferably something positive, because that's always appreciated. And then even going further, obviously you should check out their commercials. I'm sure that it's going to be somewhere out on YouTube or it'll be on TV. And if you see it, you should tweet about it or share it or check it out. And also, when people are in shorts and independent films, go see those things. Go buy them on Vimeo or Vimeo, or Amazon. Or if they're free on YouTube, go watch it and share it around because it means something. Obviously, a lot of people put a lot of work into independent films, and it's very much appreciated when they're shared and actually watched. And somebody, because I'm sure if somebody sent you a message about that independent film, you'd be like, oh man, somebody watched it. This is awesome. I'm really appreciative that they actually watched this. That's really cool. And it goes a long way. Also, I am an independent content creator myself. Obviously, I run this show. I have a Kickstarter launching on November 1st. And I also have Buy Me a Coffee. While my sponsorship does cover a lot of stuff, running this project is not cheap. And I am broke. I am extremely cash poor. And I do like frappuccinos. So you can buy me a coffee. It's greatly appreciated. But more so than that, I just appreciate a share from my Facebook page, YouTube, Twitch, or anywhere else where you're getting this. It goes a long way for me because I just want people to see this. And I want people to actually see my work. It means something to me. So on that note, I know you got a meeting to go to, so I'm going to give you the final word. And I apologize to the meeting. You could just take this and just cut it right before your meeting and send it to everybody. My apology to all your co-actors and co-creators. But I'm going to give you the final word.
I mean, you pretty much said it. Just share, and really just support the community. Like everyone likes to support, the big guy, but no one wants to support the little guy, even though you live right next door to a little guy. So.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that that's a perfect place to end. And so that is a wrap.
All right. Take it easy.